wondering.
Yes,
Okay, good deal.
we'll see how that goes.
It'll be fine. Usually have so many, I don't know what to do with them. Oh. That's okay. Well, I have, oh, that's good. Yeah, we'll just run.
Okay, well, I will go ahead and call our meeting to order here. This is October 5th, 2022, the Executive Committee meeting. It is 5:33, and I'll call our meeting to order here. And we had, our first item on the agenda is to continue our book review discussion. Just had a couple things with regard to that. I know that we, and the book we're talking about is that Building a High Impact Board Superintendent Partnership, the 11 critical questions you need to answer. One of the things was that we had talked about maybe doing some reshifting of our committees. As I continue to delve into it's chapter 8, where it really talks about those different, I believe it's page 88, I want to say that 88 has that, the different, kind of gives you a little chart of the board committees that the author suggests. And then on pages 89 and up through, I believe, the end of that chapter, pretty close up to 92, it talks about the descriptions. And then finally, on, I believe, the last page or the second to last page, 93, it talks about what do you do in smaller organizations, which is our organization. We fit into that 7, where it talks about that you really couldn't do this model with all of these. Like you would have to, they suggest that you take this external stakeholder relation one and you actually put that into a different one of these. So you don't have them all. I like these. The only problem is I know it's condensing some of our tasks, which is, finance. And when I was kind of figuring out where those committees, which ones would kind of be consumed by the new one, I was getting a little stuck in, it just seems like there'd be a lot of dual meetings for our staff. So for instance, when you look at, if we change to doing the performance monitoring / audit, that committee is looking at not only financial aspects, but it also looks at academic aspects. So when we talk about, measuring achievement, things like that, those would be some of the things. So it kind of involves curriculum, and it also involves financial for certain aspects of it.
Right.
I think that if we're going to do something like this, we got to get kind of creative on how we're going to, how would that look as far as members to those if we flipped over to that. So I'm not sure. I guess what I'm proposing is that we kind of come up with some solutions to this. And, in talking to, my suggestion would be, that we talk to Jim about this a little bit more and what that would look like. So that we have, we don't want to present something until we have it pretty ironed out of what that would look like. And the other thing is that, at least our committee would be really excited about this idea, right? before we present it to the full board saying, hey, what do you guys think about this restructuring? So I guess what I'd like to do is, kind of a homework thing for us is to look at, page 88, the descriptions there, and, talk about, what that would look like. How do we get our key players into those groups? From what we're doing now, to what this would be. And then even if we really would want to do that, remember, this is a more collaborative model. It's about having it's more systemic. So how do we get the board and all the way down to your key stakeholders to really feel like they are part of the system and are collaborating in a way, or you're taking making connections. So that's kind of what I propose. And we may say at the end of the day, after looking at this, no, we like what we're doing, and we want to stay where we're at. But I think to give it, I think some due diligence would be really looking at, we've looked at now the book and why the author believes it's important. I'm even looking at a different book that talks about systems in schools as well, and I think that it coincides with this a lot. So what do you guys think about that? Just taking some time to kind of break this down a little bit further, seeing if that's something we want to do, pros and cons to it maybe, and some solutions about how what would that look like as far as what key players are going to be in those committees. Do we have our financial person go to both? Do we have them come when it's only a certain agenda item? I don't know. So that's what I'm looking for, is kind of what would this look like if we really rolled it out in our district?
I think we need to take our time looking at it. It's a very different concept. But I like the idea that there's more crossover, and that I don't like to use the term silo. It's not my favorite, because to me that's like new speak, right? But where everybody's kind of like in their own little group, and curriculum, HR, but how do you get to know those other areas? So I like the idea that there's that crossover, and that the board grows as a whole instead of just within your own committee. I know what I mean by that. So I like that idea, but I definitely think we need to really hash through it and see, like you said, if it's right for us or not, and how we want it to look. It may be a modified version of this, but warrants more discussion, I think. So
yeah, and I'm going to play the devil's advocate on it. So things like strategic and operational planning, performance monitoring, audits, external stakeholder relations, governance. The added benefit of having something as simple as finance, buildings and grounds, curriculum, and personnel is they're very common speak, segmented committees, and maintaining common speak segmented committees also allows the public to know which direction, especially when we're working mainly things in committee, to know this committee will probably be taking this up. So, while having a diverse, maybe more fluid setup, I think, I agree, we should look more into it. But I think there is something to be gained by having something where people kind of know where it is, where it should go, etc. It's pretty easy to figure out, but it's very different. And anytime you get too different on things, people start getting a little uneasy. It's throwing them off of their regular systems. So they get people don't handle change as well. Let's look at the one-way, two-way streets. Yeah, it was not always very favorable simply because it's change. So,
Although now we're used to it already.
well,
Yeah,
we'll see. You talk about that.
Yeah, it's a whole different.
The truck. Yeah. So,
But I understand what you're saying, but that would be, first of all, it's our job that if we're going to just look at something or not, to fully understand it ourselves. So if we don't have a complete grip on it and what it means, then it's certainly something we should move forward. So, I think we have to delve into it just to look at it. And that certainly is a great point. Like if it was something that changed, it may not use these exact titles, or we would have to be diligent in saying when we discuss this or things that are going on the agenda, that it says where it's going. We have to work through that transition period till people were used to it, because this is a different model than most people use. So,
Yeah.
but I think it's worth looking at.
And I think what I'm finding is, and I guess the reason why I think this would be good as well, and I think, well, let me say this first, is that I find us needing, or it's more beneficial to have joint meetings. So for instance, when I think about building and grounds and financial, there's been some things recently that have come to buildings and grounds that have been bounced to finance and then bounced back to buildings and grounds. When I look at a committee like strategic and operational planning, right? Operations and how we're going to plan, that's very, where does buildings and grounds fall in that? I think it's huge.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also, buildings and grounds is very connected to our financial piece as well. So, and then I look at also operational being, you have the personnel committee, and, that's part of operations as far as a bigger picture item. So anyway, so I guess my feeling was, do we then continue to have one personnel meeting and then a joint meeting, and then we're already on two committees already? Does it make sense to create something like this? Jim, you had your hand up.
Yeah, just one thing I think that will come from this, if we decide not to change the model, we'll gain something in terms of really our existing models if we stay with that, because we'll have more understanding that it doesn't work in that self-contained unit, it impacts others. But if you stop to think of some things in terms of the importance of understanding our work, we're labor intensive. Cost gets associated with everything. The one thing we don't do that business does, we don't do very well, is we don't evaluate the return on investment. So we establish a new position.
I agree.
What have we done to identify, it's not for a savings, but it is for examining how does this approach, what's the return versus that approach?
Well, we want to be effective and efficient.
Right. So you're tying these things in, and sometimes it seems like it might stand alone when nothing really stands alone.
Right.
So it's trying to make more sense of it. So one way or the other, whether or not we find ourselves, oh yeah, now that we really understand it's the good, but if we don't, we'll still benefit, I think, from this examination.
I think so too.
Well, and it's always good to challenge, it always to be internally challenging, not just your own narrative, but also your own activity, to make sure that, like you were saying, efficiency, because that's the only way you're going to grow. If we're hoping to grow and develop, then we should look inwardly. So absolutely should be challenging our current model to see if it's always the best one moving forward.
I'd give another example, even in a recent directors meeting where I've had. Essentially, it has to do with, just pick an example. We recognize that there's activities going that have cost to it, but we haven't planned for that in the budget. And because we've been doing it all the time, we just looked at Angela and said, that's your problem, find the money. when in fact, it's really how does this fit into all our planning?
Right.
And what priority do we give it? I mean, so you can start understanding that there's more. It's not somebody's work, it's our work.
Yeah.
Relative to what we're trying to accomplish. So this will be beneficial, I think, just by the very nature that we're going to dig in deep, to understand what this is trying to convey to us. But I do see, those challenges already, but from having years of experience, I'm recognizing what's going on. And we haven't addressed something because sometimes that's somebody else's and that person's responsible for trying to bring everybody else into their area.
Yeah. Except maybe it'll be a modified version.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be a cross between. I don't know. I think, again, we need to understand it a whole lot more and think it through. So I think, if we talk about this at every meeting and maybe try to, like you said, Stacy, we'll try to do some homework. I'll do my homework. Will you do your homework?
Sure. What's this?
You have to say yes or.
Of course I do. Yes. So what is the next steps that we're looking to move with this? Because I mean, it's all great and dandy to talk about that. Yes, we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about this. But if we're not doing any action on it, there's no point. Maybe, I mean, we're just circling.
Right. My suggestion would be that our next step is that the three of us do some homework with, pages 89 through 94, but really pages 89 through 91, and really know what the description is that they give to these, because to Jim's point, the committee is performance monitoring and audit committee. That's really the, what are the key, again, that return on investment is in that piece. So what I'd like is for us to look at those, look at what we're doing now, and for us to each come to the table with an idea of how could we take our programs now, our committees now, where would they fit? And especially when we're talking about, directors, because this part of this is, or a big part of this is how do we interact more effectively and efficiently? We often talk about, well, I didn't know that, or, I didn't feel like I have enough information to make some of those decisions, where this really sets the stage for how that can be a better process. But we might maybe the solution is taking some of the principles here and adding them to our committee. I mean, either or, but the action item is that the three of us each look at this, bring some things to the table about, is this something that's doable? Do we have some solutions on how, for instance, like, or problems, throwing up problems too, right? For instance, when I started in preparation for this meeting, I put down the all the new committees, and then I said, okay, I thought, okay, this is going to become curriculum, this is going to become finance, and this is going to become this, and it's not that simple. And so, how would we use our directors, right? Where do they fit into this? And so I guess that's what I'm looking for, is problems, but also solutions to those problems. Does that make sense as an action item, Colin?
It does. Yeah. So, I mean, and you're not opposed, to even going beyond whatever this model is, just as long as we can find some. The goal and the objective is to see if we can find where we're not having duplicity in our work. I'm thinking, right, where we are having a more streamlined, more effective operation, that, these newer areas that would help with that overlap could help guide with, rather than, well, let's take it up in buildings and grounds and pitch it over to finance, or take it over to personnel and then we pitch it over to finance, and just kind of, because there is the duplicity in in those steps.
Right.
And
So really,
multiple stakeholders.
really looking at how do we govern more effectively? So how does the board feel like they have enough information to make good decision making? The role of how our directors and our board members coming together. And overall, just overall from, like I said, this book talks about the structure here goes all the way down to those external stakeholder relations, right? And right now, I think we delegate a lot of these things to staff rather than collaborating on it, right? I mean, they're going to be the ones that take a lot of the action item of that, and we're going to see that even in our strategic plan. And so, but what I'm also looking for is, everything that I'm reading is, if there's a collaborative method that we can have, people seem to be more informed. Again, I can name, probably a dozen instances where on both sides, a director or a teacher or doesn't feel like they've gotten the information, or we get something that we don't feel like we were able to have enough information to go to a vote on it, or so I'm trying to figure out a way that we can streamline the information so it can be more we can just be more effective in our governing and overall do a better job of operations of our district, if that makes sense. Yeah, Jim?
Another thing to think about as we're processing through this, because this is really engaging us, right now.
Mhm.
But one of the things, from my initial interview, is keeping the main thing the main thing. And when you reflect on our committees and how much of the focal point of student achievement is driving our discussions with all our work, how much time do we spend on that versus potential component parts that misses the big picture potentially? Another way to think about this in terms of ultimately, what do you want to accomplish?
Right.
And
Yeah.
how is all our effort and our work, really elevating and accelerating that? Because one of the things that this really suggests, you are key to student achievement. Your work is key to elevating student achievement.
But it really, in every single committee, that should be the focus. Every committee.
Mhm.
So even financial decisions are made on that. Building and grounds are made, just absolutely
So you
everything.
starting to think in terms of, we can get so consumed sometimes by and not even recognizing that we're
Spinning wheels. Yeah.
Well, we're
don't think we're
doing things that
spinning
are
wheels.
valuable, but sometimes we miss the linkage because it's out of context
Yeah.
sometimes. And then,
Yeah.
then we start thinking about that and we try to bring that in, but it's not the focal point of how we've entered the discussion. I only say that as we read this, keep those things in mind, because that's ultimately what we're trying to do.
Right. No, that's a great
Governance towards what?
Yeah.
High achievement.
Another thing that we might want to consider too as we're looking at this is membership. We have a 7-person membership. So if we dilute committee participation or expand, or if there is changes in the membership of committees, one, you can create we have to worry about quorums, or ability to have that participation too. So like even in votes, so say we're going to take we see these 4 and we add a 5th. We have 7 people on our board. What does that look like? Do we have another, how does the membership to that look like, so that we can at least have, if there is a split on the vote, to, like right now, there's 3 of us, odd number, you're not going to have tie votes usually as easily, so there's always a tiebreaker.
Yeah, and this does talk about, I mean, again, it's like the very last page of the chapter talks about small boards like ours. So how do you keep people engaged, yet, again, we could not we would have to get rid of actually one of these committees, would have to be enveloped into another one. That's his suggestion in order for a 7-person board to do.
Mhm.
So, but I think that's another problem to write down, Colin, like write down that problem for next, and then let's figure out how do we solve that, right? Because
Right.
that's going to be an issue.
Problems get solved. They don't, shouldn't
Right.
get ignored. Right.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, but just before we, again, this is part of this segment really, whether it's a book review or not, it's really looking at our governance, right? And are we, what do we need to do to, and actually, on this, the governance or board operations committee that they have here is really what we're doing. And so this is sort of a challenge to how do we, or do we need to do something different with regard to our board governance to make sure we're staying focused on the big thing, which is student achievement, right? How will our governance model or what we're doing now, does it need to be tweaked so we are in line with focusing on student achievement, basically? So I'll leave it at that. But if we could do that and then just revisit that next time, I'm coming up with just some of those ideas and seeing if this fits or not, or maybe we go in a totally different direction, adopting some of the principles. Okay. All right. The next thing on our agenda here is I had put down reviewing policies that need updating and refer to committees. So one of the things that Jim has brought to my attention is that we are behind in updating policies. Is that the correct way to say it, Jim?
Yeah, that's correct. What's happened when I went into my last position, sometimes this was COVID, related in terms of where you set different priorities. When I went into my last position, we were 2 years behind in policy. You could be missing something that's really critical. This district has pulled out certain policies, or policies were brought to the attention needing to be addressed. But I don't know what we haven't reviewed for what Neola's advanced. Typically what happens is they advance 2 series of policies a year for review and consideration for adoption modification to your existing. And in addition, if there's anything of urgency, they also release that. But we pretty much subscribe to get 2 releases a year. Now, what I don't know, because of this short transition, Joyce, leaving, Joyce was responsible for curriculum. And so I suspect that a lot of that was between Joyce and Mark in terms of, kind of seeing what was there. So I don't have a clear handle of what, and so I do have Stacy, I'm not sure if you're available tomorrow and then we also have a new rep who wasn't working with Mark and Joyce. So she's trying to also identify, what we may have or may not have reviewed. And so tomorrow I'm meeting minimally, and maybe Stacy, if she's available, could join me only for 15 minutes. She is touch base because they happen to be at a Neola workshop right now. And so she's touched base with the previous person who was our rep, Scott Brown. And the new person is Jean Bourne, if I'm remembering her name, but she's now the retired superintendent of Sheboygan Falls.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, and who's worked really closely with Mary.
Yeah.
I mean, we're set up, potentially to, but again, it's like the blind leading the blind almost, because she can't tell exactly what's happened here in terms of looking at our, so that's where she's connected with Scott, who was the previous rep. So hopefully we can figure out, and I think Scott might have some suggestions, in terms of, how we might proceed. And so minimally, I will touch base with them and then try to get, and then Stacy offered to, typically what we would have done is kind of identified committees and then work back through the board to bring those to the committees. Stacy, recognizing how much work is out there, how can we help?
Mm-hmm.
And so that was like bringing it right away, to this committee to see if, even just by the titles and some brief review, if we can start determining what committee should be there. And obviously administration would be involved with our review in those respective committees. But to, try to get this on the docket, so to speak, that another thing that needs to be taken care of.
Have we, Stacy, have you, I mean, maybe you had when you were establishing chairs for committees, but has it ever been thought of to create a committee solely for policy update and review as a subcommittee almost?
Yeah, I mean, I know we've talked about that because some of these don't fall neatly into that. I think, before getting what I thought today was, I thought we would have that information of, and if we find out there are so many of them, we might have to do that for a short term.
Well, I mean, some of them are dating back to like 2014. I mean, there's some that are really far back there.
Right. The problem, though, is we don't know whether or not there was an update that came out. So 2014 might be the most recent one that Neola has, they never put anything out about it. I mean, that's what we don't know. And so what I think it would be good is that Jim's going to find out how we go about finding out that information, number one. Number two, how many there are, what are we looking at? And then it would come to this committee to be able to decide, can those go to the different committees that we have? I mean, are they focused on personnel? Are they focused on buildings and ground, whatever it may be? And if not, is there a better way to do it? I mean, I know some of the policies may just have some technical updates to them and maybe nothing major. But then there are going to be others that Neola has probably revamped with new laws and new language. So right now we're at that point of, we know it's an issue. We know we're behind. And let's collect the data first, have Jim do that. And then it'll come back to this committee to determine what we want to do.
That sounds like a great plan. I guess part of it, the reason why I think that possibly we should also maybe look at having a committee for to increase the policy review aspect is there are other procedure writers that have begun to come forward. I mean, I've expressed my displeasure with Neola many times before in the past, and so I have actually looked into other, are there other entities out there that are writing procedure and doing so, with quantity other than just that one entity, because you kind of, you have a reliance on one individual or one group then, and they're writing all your policies. And I get it that Neola is the go-to for, the 70 some districts in the state, but I guess I sometimes feel that, I don't want to put all the chickens in one basket, that maybe we should look to see what others are offering up as well, just because, hearing from more, I think, creates a better product.
Well, and we have Neola, WASB also offers this service. If you remember last time when I tried to get some information about a policy and they're like, well, you don't use our service. So yeah, I mean, I know there are other ones out there. I think that can be something that we review as well, about whether or not we, want to bid out or look at a different option. I think right now, though, we may have a problem with some of the policies that are outdated, and so we need to get a hold on that first
Okay.
and determine how we want to handle that. Jim?
Just another thought, and this is something that's really important, is that these are your policies. Neola is putting out a template and some choices based on what's going out and stuff like that. You have the right to adopt what you believe is right. Obviously, you always have to abide by the law, and they're trying to, sometimes provide options relative to what the law is requiring. Doesn't mean that you can be significantly different than that, as long as it fits our needs without violating law. The challenge is the more you do that as an exception that doesn't pick one of their things, then you just have to be responsible for maintaining that. You know what I'm saying? Because they're maintaining something with options that kind of fits into a maintenance system, so to speak. Boards turn over, stuff like that. Okay, that's just something to remember. But this is your policy, and you should know what your, as we have. We just did this with controversial issues. We personalized that to what we felt this. So I mean that's
legal limits.
Right. So I just something kind of pops, but I also recognize your point. We just registered that, and that was going to take. We're going to really look at that because we had strong thoughts about what that might mean and how we looked at that. So there was very a lot of deliberation over that, and then we agreed to what we put in there.
Well, then there's also the aspect of the amount of, you look at you raised a great point there, the amount of deliberation that went into just that one singular policy.
Right.
Now, if we're taking on, a look at many policies here, that's going to have an impact on the workflow of those other meetings that are taking those up as well. So that's where I believe that, having a section that would be directed solely for that, knowing that this task is large, might be beneficial.
I think we need to see the scope of it first. That's what we need to do, is understand how many changes have been made that we really need to deal with. I mean, I'm going to run off the assumption that Mark and Joyce did what they were supposed to, and if there was something that we had to deal with, they would have done it. And I think we have to run on that assumption, but we also need to look back and make sure that we've done our diligence with looking at the policies.
To be current, no matter if we want to switch or whatever else, but obviously it's just the need to make sure that we don't.
Well, the best example I have is the phone policy.
Yeah.
Like that should have been changed a long time ago. Well, it was 2008 or 2009, one of those.
Yeah.
So that was a no-brainer that needed to be changed. So Stacey, I'll just throw this as an offering. Let me know if it's okay with you or not. It doesn't have to be now, but if you cannot make that meeting tomorrow and you want someone represented there, I'd be happy to step up for you. But
that would be wonderful.
Would it? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to overstep boundaries or anything. But
No, absolutely. I was going to ask one of you because that would be excellent.
okay.
And it's only a 15-minute,
What's that? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's only a 15-minute,
Yeah, that's what you
I'm not
said.
sure what I'm going to find out, but, I actually did a Google Meet, so I'll just, put your name on
Okay.
there too. And then we were scheduled to get together, I think, just
the
after
afternoon.
that, so we just might meet,
Okay.
try to figure out how to
Sure.
incorporate that in.
It'll be like having two people go to the doctor, so you make sure you hear the right thing.
Right.
And I don't want to change the subject. Are we kind of done talking about this? Because I want to stay on policy, but I have something I want to bring up. So if you're not done, I'll wait.
No, I think just to recap, what we're going to do is we're going to collect some more information, come back to the committee, look at what the scope of this is, and then hopefully we can make some decisions at that time.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Kathy.
So last night Jim and I were both there, we were at the WASB workshop. And something was brought up to us, which actually is really current, because we have had one or two people come up to us to talk to us about Robert's Rules of Orders. And are we following the parliamentary rules? So what was suggested by Ben Richter, who is a WASB attorney, he's the one who led the discussion yesterday. He suggested that while we all follow Robert's Rules of Order, like that's pretty much a given. There's very few places that don't, but that because we have listed that here, this is our term. It's
Yeah, you're talking about in the bylaws.
yeah, so like policy bylaw 161 says parliamentary authority is the parliamentary authority governing the Board of Education shall be Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised as defined, blah, 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 blah. His suggestion was that while we will still follow it, that we may want to add the verbiage in that we will use it as a guidepost. And that was specifically the term that he used multiple times. So that, because Robert's Rules of Order is really meant for like enormous governing bodies, right? Like
Legislators.
like legislators. We don't have to do that, but it needs to be our guidepost. We're trying to follow along as much as possible. And so I really would like to recommend that we try to, take that under serious advisement and get that changed if everyone agrees as soon as possible. I think that just would be wise to do. And that way too, we won't be criticized if, the third time someone has a motion and we don't do things super duper, unless you're like super into that 400 and some page book and you know every idiosyncrasy in there, it allows for some of those kind of imperfections in our own meetings. So
And they identify certain things. If you didn't follow something, it could have some consequences.
Yeah.
Because if you get called on something that then gets overturned,
right.
The example that they gave, and I'm not sure if it was in the same context, but if by chance you have a significant deficit and you have to put on notice, not hoping that you would have to, but notice to teachers that you're not bringing them back, essentially, and then you have a violation because you didn't do just right by Robert's rules, and that gets reversed, all of a sudden those teachers don't have notice.
Yeah, so then we have to absorb that into our budget for the following year when we may not have the budget.
So
for
it was just identifying how something so specific, if it's not followed, could create, a challenge that could have consequences.
Yeah, and let's clarify
Right.
that was WASB's example.
Right.
That was not brought up by any of us whatsoever.
Thank you.
Yeah, but I do think that we should follow that recommendation. So I don't know where you want to go from there, but that's what I heard last night, and I thought it made a lot of sense.
Well, I know this is probably not going to be fast, but could we review the language in that policy at our next executive committee meeting and make a change and present that to the board?
Sure, it's super short. It's literally 4 little lines. But yeah, of course. We could.
Well, we could probably do it even now then.
What's that?
We could probably even do it now then.
Well, because we have review policies that need updating on our agenda. Would that be out of order to do it now?
So,
No, and the only other thing I would think, and again, what we've typically done is we have gone out to Neola, seen if there are any recommendations that they have,
Okay.
what suggestions that they have in there, and any changes that have been made over the years. So I don't know, should we do that first and find out?
Yeah.
and we're going to be on a
That makes
conversation,
sense.
and I have done just, if an issue comes up and I haven't had policy, I've asked them, are there policies out there?
Yeah.
Because I'm looking for ideas in terms of, assuming that people might have already thought through something.
Yeah.
So, that's, again, we can add that to the, even our call.
That's true. We can ask them tomorrow. That totally makes sense, Stacey.
Okay.
So,
So
but I
let's
think,
do that. Let's put that on as a, that we will get the Neola policy recommendations, and then we will review that policy at the executive committee before we send it to the full board.
yeah. There, when I kind of went through that, kind of that list in the 160s too, there are some others there. I won't even bring up specifically what it was, but there's another policy in there that was adopted in 2008. It was modified in 2016, but even then it seems kind of outdated because it doesn't bring in it talks about notification of people, and especially board members, and it doesn't bring up things like email. And I thought, well, that's something that we all really use, right? So maybe some of these things just have that simple word even added in that we need to update. So,
Right.
Isn't that what electronic mail is? The use of electronic mail.
yeah, but
So there's a policy specifically stated for email. That's,
but here's
yeah,
the one.
10167.5.
It doesn't talk about notification by electronic
Yeah.
means at all.
Well,
I don't know, it's just something to look at. I think it's
I know
worthy.
what you're saying.
So I think it's
And
good
that's
conversation.
how most of our notices come
Right,
to us is via that. So
yeah.
call us space.
It just makes sense that it would be included. So I think too, that's
Mm-hmm.
a question for Neola. Like that's another one we could, it just came up to my attention when I was looking through them.
No, I agree. I think that's, and the time is perfect because
Yeah.
of what we're attempting to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jim, before we move on, go ahead.
So another policy issue that I've had some questions on, so I started looking at our policies, and the question is, was a request for guidelines regarding, because of the elections coming up and stuff like that. So I reached out to identify, first of all, I looked and I thought our policies were vague on that. And then so as I inquired, there's really some elaborate policies out there relative to what a board might consider, to informing staff in the public. You can't, some of the things we know, board members, if you're running for election, can't campaign.
Right.
Okay, so it has to do with, elections. And so this happens to be one of those topics that is being discussed, out there too. And so I had a couple of inquiries, but then when I looked at policy, I could see where it was suggesting, but it wasn't as specific. And I thought it would be good for us to review in terms of what's out there for policy, so that there's no questions in terms of
That's good.
how we manage that with elections coming up and everything else.
Yeah.
So
Did that fall under elections then? Was that the headline?
I don't recall exactly what the,
We'll have to look.
Yeah.
See what I can pick out.
We're still on the reviewing policies, right?
Yep.
One thing as we're talking here, I just thought of, we could essentially take a policy every single meeting, and it just be our policy of the meeting, where we just look at it, and that's just something we do, and we can establish it whether it needs to be reviewed or not within that meeting. Then it gets referred to the general board, and there we go. Every committee, you think how many committee meetings there are, whether it's in our scope or not. But I think maybe that's something that I might even look at for finance. There's a whole series of finance policies. I could probably take one each meeting, see if
And
that's,
you might find too that some of are going to be, like Kathy said, they're short, and they, but that we have a record that we, on a regular basis. And I think, kind of going back a little bit to the board governance piece, is that, again, if we had, I think what's important is to have sort of a yearly schedule for governance, in the sense that any person that comes into the seat, our seats, that they would know, in January, that's when we would review these policies, and so on and so forth. So that, everyone, it's consistent over the years, rather than it kind of going to the wayside for whatever reason.
The way to transfer that knowledge, people do it all the time in companies, right when you come aboard on as a company, is hand you a company manual. We could essentially just have when you're brought up board as a board member, you'd have the policies. This is, a actual tangible, this is the policy book. And you can review it. I know what you're looking at, like,
It's a big book.
but it could also have that schedule in there too. This is what we do at this point in time, so they kind of know what's coming down the pipeline at certain points in the year. The director can put in there, well, we this is when we start reviewing the budget and so on. And it could be just something that when they're brought aboard as members of the board, that now they have the picture of when certain works happen.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend the book part, like the policy, printing all the policies, but to what you're saying, like it could easily be something where if you have, okay, like this group of people will be addressing, say, budget and finance, they will be addressing X policies, here are the numbers, this is where you access them. Because truthfully, when people are brand new coming onto the board, not everyone knows where those things are.
Yeah.
And instead of feeling like you're stupid and asking a lame question, just have it there for somebody, just in case there's that person out there. So it could be just something as simple as that, like how to find things, say within our website, who has information. It's kind of like we've talked in the past too about having something about like the I forget what term you called it, but it's about knowing who does what for their jobs even. Like what does this title mean and what does this person do? Like just having that knowledge so that you're not, again, people don't know, especially if you don't work in the school district and in education, you may have no idea what people actually do.
And I want to rein us back in because you're talking about, that's what, again, you're talking about these governance issues, right? And if we're going to be an effective governance body, we really need to do something different in how we onboard new board members and, all that stuff. So
that could be there in that book, there could be policy. So
going back to
we're staying on agenda. We're staying on agenda.
Right. Jim, yes.
Just some districts, that's been their practice, like in a 3-year cycle, they go through the whole policy book so that there is a constant review.
Right.
That could take place in different forms, like the reference to committees, but it's just a matter to make sure that that your policies are being kept current.
Yeah. There has to be a happy medium, though. I'm fully aware of a district, when I won't say how I know or what district it is, whose every single business meeting, they are given between 200 and 400 pages on Friday. Their meetings are on Monday, and they are supposed to read through all of those for Monday for their business meeting. Just policy. That's insane, right? And especially when you're doing that and like maybe changing a word from, us to them, or, you know what I mean? Like yesterday to today. I mean, it's just, that's insanity. And that's just getting bogged down with minutia and unnecessary, it's just unnecessary work.
Nope.
But yet there has to be a happy medium in there, right? Like we need to address policies, but it should never go that far.
So let's start with, this process here with Neola, finding out some information. And then, I will even make on the next exec committee meeting is also something addressing, again, some of these issues you guys are talking about, how to be more of a effective in our governing as far as onboarding and those manuals, those kinds of things.
Yeah, that'd be great. Because that's going to be here before we know it. So
right. Okay. Next thing is to review the policy for yearly superintendent evaluation. I put this on here because I didn't want it to be lost. And I had Lori quickly print you off, because just so you wouldn't have to go rooting for it. Policy 1240 is the one that was revised It's interesting though that it was adopted in July of the last revised 2021.
Mhm.
And so one of the things that I just wanted us to review it so we're all on the same page of when this is going to get rolled out. And because, this formative process needs to be done no later than the second board meeting in January.
Right.
So, we need to be thinking about, starting this process because next time we meet, it's going to be November.
Yeah, that's true.
So do we, and then we review it again in June. And so just from the way when we did it the first time, I just wanted to make sure that we all know what's going to happen in January or between now and January. So the formative evaluation would include active participation of each member. Last year, if you guys remember, we had a little survey that we had put out. We would review any artifacts that the superintendent would want us to look at. The compilation of assessments onto standard form by the individual board members. That's where we had created that survey. And the board president and or one other designated member of the board will meet to discuss the consensus of that. And then the next part is that summative evaluation that would then be a review in June. So I think that what we need to do, since we're kind of reaching close to that, is maybe in November, starting that process. And do we want to use the same evaluation that we did before and get that out to each board member with a due date?
How comfy are you with that product that I believe it was both Carrie and yourself had worked on for the evaluation? Is there anything that you want to tweak for that evaluation of the superintendent at this time, or is that kind of the document that you're fully behind? Is there? Yeah,
I know what Kathy's going to bring up right now as she's fumbling through that book.
Okay.
Because the book also talks about maybe a better way to do the evaluation. And I actually remembered that, and I'm gonna one of my tasks here is I'm gonna send a message out to the author of the book.
Okay.
And see if he has some type of written guidance for that. I didn't see any on his website, but I'm gonna look for that. The other thing that our HR director mentioned was do we want to get some feedback from direct reports to the superintendent to just give the board an idea of how things are going. I guess my personal thing is I don't love this policy that's been created. So I guess to answer your question, I don't love what we've created. But it's in existence, and I want to make sure that we don't have it fall through the cracks.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and part of this is, I'm proud that we came up with this because before, remember, it was just very willy-nilly, and we questioned whether or not it was even taking place at certain times.
Right.
And there was not the biggest thing was there wasn't a kind of storage place for those evaluations, so that when board changes, this way there's a reference that is put into a file so that there is something to base something off of in the future.
we have that storage place now with that shared drive where we can add those.
But we did before, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so I think, as part of what I'm really pleased with, that we went this far. Can it be tweaked? Sure, it can. And you have to remember, we've really only done this one time, even though it's been, like kind of adopted for a while, because we've had a big changeover. So
Right.
This is still really fresh and we're still kind of working through it. And again, I think that it's best to really analyze how well did it work the last time and sure we make changes.
Right. And so maybe, my suggestion would be is that we use it again how it is.
Mhm.
After that, though, we spend some time in either probably in a board meeting, soliciting some feedback from the board members on how it went. Are we getting to what we wanted? And are there any changes that we would look at making?
I think too, it'd be a great conversation to have with Mary, since she comes from another district too, to learn what they've done in the past and what advice she might have. It would be a good
absolutely.
conversation to engage with her in.
Well, we have till November to get this done, or to actually start having that take place. I don't see where we can't. I mean, we should be able to. Why don't we bring this back? Currently table the policy review, this policy, and see if in the interim, as part of one of our homework items, see if there's any tweaks and changes that need to be made. And then, if we're displeased with the product, let's address that, and not just kick the can down the street that we'll get it.
I will say that I'm not unhappy with the policy itself. I think I'm really happy with that. I think it's the means that we're using for the actual evaluation, like our forms that we're using. So I like the idea that we're doing it twice a year. I feel like it keeps like the engagement going between the board members and the superintendent, that communication line open. And again, I just don't know that our actual, sorry, my voice is going crazy. Our actual review, the paperwork is maybe what we could look at more. That's kind of how I'm thinking.
Well, and maybe that's what we do. I can send you guys a copy of the plain document that we had. I think the reason I don't like the policy is because in my mind, it's not set up, the timing of it. Right. I mean, that we were all really confused. Remember last time, it's like, when do you get and again, I think this also goes back to sort of a total different governance model, is when do you sit down with the superintendent and develop those goals every single year? And that, because right now we're collecting artifacts, but what are we collecting artifacts on? I think we're doing a better job meeting with Jim once a month to look at what are those things that we set out for him and evaluating him on those. But again, there wasn't a formal process. Well, I shouldn't say that. There was, because we came up with those things as a group during our superintendent search, but it just seems like there's a piece missing, and maybe that's not necessarily the evaluation, but there's definitely got to be a time where the board goals, the superintendent goals, all that is set together, so that when we go to collect these artifacts and data, the superintendent, because I remember Mark going like, okay, so what do you want me to bring to this meeting? It's missing. There's just something.
Why not just include the matrix into the policy? I mean, there's no reason that, you think of the new plan, you're very familiar with new plan policies. We have attachments and addendums all the time in those policies where the form that is specified to be used is stated in those policies. And the reason for that is so that there's continuity in their usage. We could very easily just include that. That way then, superintendent one knows this is what
Right. I know what you're saying.
The part of it is, it's the timing. And I agree, we were all very like confused about the timing. I do think having more than one once a year makes sense, but I don't know for sure if the timing does. I do get a little concerned too about like the no later than the second week of January. It just is really, it's really buffering right up to that deadline, you know, so good conversation to have. I mean, but I like the overall gist of the policy, of the evaluation.
So let's next month, two things. Let's look at the form, see if we want to make any changes. You know, if there's any obvious policy things, or maybe we can even just start talking about a policy change, but go ahead and use what we're using now. We'll decide, we can decide that next time.
Okay.
You know, or discuss it next time, and then make any tweaks to that we need to. I'll send that out to you so you guys can look at it.
Yeah, this is the matrix right now? The blank matrix?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
The evaluation form that we used last year.
And I would throw this out there too. I mean, I know Jim's the one we're going to be evaluating, but you know, if there's something that you've seen effective use in the past, I mean, Jim's been in several different districts over his, you know, you have the experience of that. Is there a method or a thing that you felt was valuable as a superintendent and that we might also think that is valuable as board members? You know, you may have some ideas about that too. We'll see through you too if you come up with anything that's not right.
All right.
So reference is made to a matrix. I'm not sure if I've seen that.
So basically, like the form that we use.
Is the policy current to what you're doing?
This is very current. This was just adopted March of this year.
Okay.
Well, no.
21.
It's
21.
missing.
Thank you.
It's missing. So like, you know,
So
like
what's on policy here? Yes.
there is a matrix that was constructed last year by
It's not really a matrix, it's a survey. It's a survey very similar to a Google survey that I created with the personnel committee. We came up with what the questions were going to be, and that went out to each one of the board members.
Collecting information.
it had rubric and all that to it too.
Yeah,
So did it have like certain things that you wanted to, you know, like that you wanted to see and criteria of that you would expect from a, I guess maybe my memory is a little fuzzy as to what it looked like, but you're sending it out so we can address that in the next meeting.
Yeah, like there was a financial section and
Right.
I don't remember all of them either. I have stuff about it somewhere, but you know, it kind of like divided up different areas. Like how good is the superintendent at with the public? You know, like how
Right.
much have they reached out? How, you know, what kind of financial responsibility and understanding do you have?
Well,
You know, those kinds of things.
and the reason for doing it that way was that we didn't have you sitting in and we sit down to evaluate you, and you're coming to the table with, I come to work with a smile. I make sure that I drink my coffee every day, and you know, everybody. I ask everybody how their day is doing, and you know, it's just fuzzy, good feels. And it's not constructive at all. So this way, we're something a little bit more structured and meaty to that evaluation, rather than just a thumbs up, Jim.
Well,
Yeah.
you know, goals, you know, working towards accomplishing goals.
Exactly. Yeah. And it builds its goal is to kind of give you some. Yeah, and I don't know. I did like the product. I did like the survey or matrix or whatever you want to call it. I did like that last year. I think it was very, it did to definitely give us direction and follow a path that we wanted to see. So,
Yeah.
And there was good discussion that surrounded as a result.
That's true.
So,
But we did do the 1 through 5 system, which is why I know I kind of tapped the book here, because it suggests in the book that there may be better methods out there. So it's again worthy of, I don't want to rely, this isn't like the Bible of school boards.
no,
You know, we
Right.
have to put us clear for everybody, right? But it promotes ideas and gets us thinking about, well, are we doing everything to the best of our abilities? And should we look at them differently? So, you know, I would probably take a better look at that section myself too.
Yeah, he has about 6 or 7 books on, so he's been widely used, but there's others out there.
But there's a
too.
lot of people who write books,
Right.
yeah. So-
And I don't think you're using it as, the Bible as school books, because you
No.
also in the same sentence was saying, Jim, if you have any other ideas, bring them to the table.
Right.
So,
I mean, there's a Carver model that says your policy is very little. And the responsibility rests on the shoulders to carry out that policy, where really the policy book almost, it's more of the procedures, are really more of the superintendent. That's a model, that's kind of a business model out there. It's really driving a lot of results and big picture stuff. But again, there could be criticisms too that the board's not engaged.
Yeah.
So it depends on how things are used.
Yeah.
I think it is important for you to really look in terms of what's out there, reflect on that, and that you're feeling good, when working with the superintendent relative to whatever you do helps move the district forward.
All right, so I'll make sure I get that out to you guys. And if you haven't gotten it, make sure to send me a message if I forgot. I have it down here though. Okay, and then the final thing on here is our board meeting dates. This is sort of twofold. One thing is we need to bring a Kathy cannot do a second Tuesday night in a month. And so we're going to run into, we're hitting the time where we need to decide what time that second meeting, not what time, when, because I don't get the sense from the board that they are going to be able to do an afternoon meeting. So if a Tuesday night is out for two nights out of the month, we need to find a different date where we would have that second meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, it seems like the board's full on board with those dates. I agree that, most people can attend night meetings. They just are better for everybody's schedule. Are there days that are working better that you'd be able to,
Nights.
Yeah,
Any night but Tuesday.
really? Okay.
I do think part of what we need to look at too with our meetings, and I know this is kind of, it's not digressing at all, but it's adding something to it. It's just that, at least for me personally, I feel like we are in meetings all the time.
Yeah.
And so like I am, and as much as I'm devoted to doing the job, sometimes it's getting in the way of my life. And part of that's a sacrifice, but yet there's a balance there.
Mhm.
And so I feel like we just need to come up with an overall plan for when we're meeting, like the master plan of when the meetings are as a whole, even with committees. And I know part of it too is just, I'll go back, like I said, I always talk about ad hoc, but part of it too was all those months of ad hoc meetings that added to it. That was at least during the day. But between this and being on budget and finance, and then of course curriculum and, like our regular meetings, it's just a lot. And I'm not, the board before was more in the position where many people weren't working day jobs. And so people were able to have that meeting during the day much more easily. And that was always part of the board, even when I came on, to have that day meeting. And one of the advantages is it does offer people who cannot make a nighttime meeting, and I'm just talking about public here, the opportunity to come during the day. I know that doesn't really work for the majority of our board members, and I certainly want to adjust to that, so, but on the same token, I've got that one thing on Tuesdays that means an awful lot to me, and I've been doing it for more than a decade, and I mentally cannot give up 2 Tuesday nights a month. It's just, it could change a lot of things for me. So is there a different night? It really doesn't matter to me. It's just the Tuesdays, and I'm happy to have one. It wouldn't matter if we switch both meetings to another night, or if we just switch one of them, if it's the special meeting that we mess around. I mean, I don't really, it doesn't matter. I'm talking way too much. It just doesn't matter to me. I just can't do more than the one Tuesday night. Other than that, I'm pretty clear.
Lori, do you think that this would be best handled by sending out one of those meeting finder?
Like one of those Google surveys or whatever?
Yes.
Sure.
I mean, I'm just afraid that we could spend 60 minutes
Yeah,
trying to talk about our regular time for these two meetings, and it might be more beneficial to just collect the data.
yeah, I agree. Because we're only 3 of us here, and there's 4 other people's schedules. And not just 4, but I mean, we're talking about directors and everybody too. So
I guess if you can let me know, like, what you want me to send out, I'll be happy to send it out. Like, the days and the dates of the, the day of the week and the choices. And if you want to keep it both meetings on a specific night, or if you want to change it, keep the second Tuesday, the first meeting of the month on the second Tuesday. And then if there's that special meeting, move that one to a different time. That's up to you, but yeah, I can certainly send that out.
Okay.
Well, and to give you kind of some direction on that, we probably are all in agreement that evening is best, I would gauge, correct?
not for me, but for everybody.
Yeah,
As a whole.
as the whole, that
Yeah.
we should probably be looking to evening. Are you agreeing there, Stacy?
Yeah, I mean, Carrie, I know, would meet during the day as well.
The only thing I just want to remind, I know some of the committees have established a standing committee meeting
Yeah.
out there, and those are out there. So we just, I guess, want to keep that in mind. I believe curriculum has a standing committee meeting.
That's getting changed though. I did tell them we would do a standing meeting because it's on Tuesday.
Oh, okay.
And I said, I will do this until October. And then I even realized that the 18th is a Tuesday. I'm like,
Oh.
crud, this went too far. Like, we should have changed it this month, but there are too many individuals involved right now to change it.
Okay.
But that does, curriculum needs to change.
Okay. So I guess I don't know how you want to, like, do we touch base with, maybe that's something next Tuesday at the meeting when the directors are here. I don't know, to ask them when their standing meeting is. Excuse me.
Well, and then there's
That, or I'm thinking we always meet the 2nd and the 4th, right? And I don't know, are there standing meetings that 4th?
Not the fourth, not the fourth week.
Right. So I think we would stay on that schedule. We would just pick a different day is what I'm thinking.
Well, like Wednesdays is budget and finance.
But not the fourth Wednesday.
But not the 4th Wednesday.
Oh, right. So that would open up that Wednesday. I mean, I guess let's, instead of talking about it for an hour, like I said, let's accumulate information and look at it.
So I'll Lori, you and I'll connect and we'll figure out how we want that to be rolled out
Okay.
to collect some data from everybody.
Sounds good.
I appreciate that very much.
The only other meeting that I wanted to talk about, and going back to the not the sole book that we're going to go by.
Yeah.
It's funny because on page 116, it talks about the relationship between the foundation board and the school board. So one of the things is that we would like to, and the foundation board is amenable to this, and we'd like to get a meeting between our executive committee and our foundation board to just, figure out how, because they have, they started off as together and now they're separate from us. And there's just some things that I think we need to develop a partnership with them. And so they have proposed I think 2 meeting dates. Is that right, Jim?
Well, they would, from next week to the week after, a noon meeting, from an hour to an hour and a half. And so if over those 2 weeks, if we have some dates that you might be available, then I can share that with their executive committee.
Okay.
So it'd be executive and executive, meeting sometime, within the next couple weeks for a luncheon meeting.
Did they pick a date? Did they pick a day of the week? No.
Some of them are gone, but I talked to Biff today, and he said, provide some dates, we'll make it work. So they will, make sure that their executive committee, that with some of the dates that we might provide them, that they'll match that, and then we'll confirm.
Well, now I know I know that they're looking at that ask for staffing as well. That'd be a prime opportunity to discuss what their vision and plan is.
Yeah, it's all this stuff, I think, coming, bringing us up to speed in terms of what their work is, and they're very interested in making sure that we're connected, in the right way in terms of how to conduct business together.
Well, yeah, and where our reliance, even even from the HR standpoint.
Yep.
So yeah, we definitely should be connecting.
Yeah.
With them. Yeah.
So again, if you could provide, if you don't know it now, your accessibility over the next 2 weeks for a luncheon meeting.
Okay.
And what would we say, 12 to 1:30 or 11:30 to 1?
I'll just say whatever. The only day that I cannot do it, which I know someone on that committee also
Can't.
can't, is the 12th.
So everything but the 12th in the next 2
Yeah,
weeks.
it's just because I have PT and stuff, so.
So the 12th is ruled out.
Yeah, but otherwise I could do anything during the day
So,
in the next 2 weeks.
and we're looking at noon.
Yeah,
Noon-ish.
11:30 or noon,
Okay.
hour and a half.
So Monday I have that availability.
The 10th.
The 11th I don't. So 10, 12. Yeah, so far the only one that I can't do that is 11. I do have my meeting with you that day on the 11th. So, and we could move it, I guess.
Yeah.
Depending on needs. The 17th I can't do. The 20th I can't do.
You go with the 19th.
The
I'm just looking
19th.
at your calendar, Jim.
19th I have availability during that time.
How about you, Stacy?
19th would work for me.
It works for me. It works for
We can
Tim.
try that. Obviously, we have to connect on their side.
Okay,
So that would be a top choice. Maybe a couple others.
okay.
So we would kind of
That's fine.
proceed with the 19th as being the preferred, and but just in case,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we could start for 2 if we had 3, it would probably.
Do I need to be at this meeting?
I don't know.
I mean, it's a
It's
public
a-
meeting. It will be a public meeting that we have to.
We have to have minutes and everything for,
Okay.
so.
Well, do they take their own minutes though? Who
You're
took?
gonna-
Well, I didn't know what type of meeting, if it was just like a luncheon, you know what I mean? I
Yeah, it'll be
didn't
kind of a
know.
luncheon meeting, but they would share.
And because we have the executive committee meeting,
Minutes for
Right.
we do have to
Do they-
notice
we have to
it.
post- Yeah,
We have to
What
have,
does?
there has to be
Oh,
minutes,
right.
so it would require minutes for this meeting.
But now Lori just said that Biff doesn't meet minutes for the foundation, so maybe if Biff is willing to take those
Yep,
minutes,
yep.
Lori wouldn't have
I mean,
to
I
be
can
there.
do it, it's just next week, I'm on Thursday
Yep,
and
that's
Friday,
right,
and I have like a safety
yeah, is that,
meeting and things
yeah,
like that,
yeah.
so,
Check with, I would just say check with Biff.
Yeah.
Right?
okay.
yeah, we can do that.
mean, it could be
Because
set
it'd
up
be
too.
shared, it's the minutes that,
Are you going to be doing it like here or are you meeting outside of here?
I would assume here.
Let's
Okay.
do here. We have the space.
Right.
Okay.
We can bring in some sandwiches or whatever and
Okay.
I mean, I don't even need sandwiches. If you guys want sandwiches, fine, but
Something with charcoals
Yeah.
to cater.
Sure, whatever.
it'll be an interesting, check out some Chartwell's food. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great opportunity to
Evaluate.
showcase. Yeah.
So, what is, if we want to do another day just to give them, how does the 18th look?
That's fine with me. Like I said, the only one I can't is the 12th, so anything.
How about, 13th or 14th?
I can't do anything next week unless it's virtual.
Okay, so then we're moving, and so the 21st, my brother's getting married on the 22nd, so 21st is out of, nope, that's already been locked in.
What about the 20th? You said no on the 20th?
20th, I cannot do. I already have a time,
18th?
unless we're after 12. If we're afternoon, then I might just be, I should be able to.
What does the 18th look like for you?
It has to be, I have a 2:00 that day, so it would have to be,
Like 11:30 to 1?
yeah. I mean, I can't go much beyond that because I have obligations to my clients too. So,
So why don't we say the 19th, 12 to 1:30, or the 18th, 11:30 to 1?
Okay.
Does that sound okay, Jim?
yes.
Okay.
Or if you want to touch base with Beth, because
Account plan.
I mean, okay,
All right, perfect. All right, Jim has one more thing.
oh, that was it. We just,
Oh, perfect. You just wanted to.
I didn't want to forget something if you already did it, so.
All right, well, do I have a motion to adjourn?
motion,
Do I have a second?
I second that.
Okay, wonderful. All those in favor?
I.
Aye.
no, I'm just kidding. Aye.
All right, perfect. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'll
Thanks.
send you some information, everyone.
Enjoy your
Sounds
vacation.
good, thanks.
Thank
Stacey.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So.
Thanks, Lori.
Parliamentarian, and just like-
Oh, they would flip. Yes.
Well,
I thought about
I
that.
mean-
Like, oh,
I mean, this is part of what was brought up yesterday. And it's